Good morning, everybody. It is coffee and guitar time. Hope you're having a great morning. It's Saturday, so I got up and watched the Formula One sprint. Good race. It was fun to watch. Sat down with you. I'm going to talk about guitar stuff. Okay, so here is a concept and a kind of a trope we hear on the internet all the time, that you can't buy skill. And usually this is said by somebody who is trying to explain why, like a just as good as guy. Trying to tell other people why it's not wise to buy an expensive fancy guitar. Usually that's where it is. You can't buy skill. Okay. I agree. You can't. I don't think you can, because skill is closely related to the amount of discipline and time and experience, and just lived life and thousands of hours of practice. Like practice. There's the all you do is practice guy. But I think that's a little bit oversimplified. Because while you cannot buy skill, you absolutely can buy performance. And there's a difference between those two things. And let's get this really clear. We're not talking about cheap versus expensive here. We're talking about a concept about what your guitar should accomplish for you. Okay? And sometimes it costs money to make that happen, but not always. Okay? So this is not necessarily cheap versus expensive. This is not that argument. But when you choose an instrument, no matter what it is, no matter what price point it is, these are principles that I think will help you if you allow yourself to think about them and really kind of think this out. Okay. Everybody wants to save money. Everybody wants to, there's the whole race to the bottom thing. I get it. But you can absolutely buy performance. Okay. If you try to do something performance oriented with a very entry level version of whatever it is, you will have a difficult time. Okay. If you try to win a mountain bike race with a very heavy mountain bike, apparently that print job is done. If you go and enter a USPSA pistol shooting match with a Glock 19 that costs $500, and I have, or if I give you a Nighthawk with a fantastic trigger, that's a huge difference in performance. If you have a very entry-level guitar versus something that is, let's take, for example, something that's very well sorted like a PRS, there's a huge difference in performance. Okay. And what I mean by that is, when you have a well-performing instrument, when you have something that is cutting edge, then skill will arrive more quickly. So if you don't have the skill, because a lot of people, I don't deserve that guitar, or I'm not good enough to appreciate that guitar. Maybe not. However, if you have a good instrument, if you have a well-performing instrument, if you have something that is really cutting edge, you will arrive there much more quickly. There's a few things that I think people confuse in this concept, okay? Skill, performance, and experience. They're not the same thing, okay? The experience is how you feel when you use product, right? Some of that's a high percentage of that is psychological. It's not technical. Okay. Then there's also experience, which is taking that experience that you took it using that product or object and then compiling all of those experiences into your lived experience, right? But most of that is psychological. Some of it, if you were to break it up into a percentage, a lot of it's psychological and some of it is technical. Skill is the thing you develop over time having those experiences, right? Performance is a completely different thing that we're going to get into. If you have a performance product, if you have a performance car, okay, if I give you, in fact, we could do this. So if I give you Brianna's car and I tell you, go do a lap in that car, even as a novice, you've never done a lap on a racetrack before, and I tell you, go do 5 laps in Brianna's car. And you go do 5 laps in Brianna's car. And then I say, okay, because she's got a Volkswagen Tiguan. And I say, okay, now take my Audi Q7 with all the fancy suspension and everything and the awesome motor and all. And you go do the same 5 laps. You will be faster, even with no experience. Because what you've done is, instead of fighting the object, you are now jumping ahead in the type of experience that you have. If you have a better guitar, it removes friction and limitations from gaining experience. As you gain experience and as you develop skill with a better performing instrument, you will do it more quickly because you don't have any of that friction. Instead of fighting things, you end up spending more time learning, spending more time being creative. So stable tuning, really good fretwork, good ergonomics, good electronics, like excellent pickups. People say that excellent pickups don't make you a better guitar player, but they do actually. They do make you a better guitar player more quickly. They absolutely do, because you spend less time fiddling and the music flows out of you more easily. It's a fact that you can access more parts of your brain that are not being distracted by compensating for the limitations of the instrument. It's a physiological fact that if your brain's not doing this thing, it can do more of this other thing. So you just don't have to think about those things anymore, and you can concentrate on the thing. And the other thing is, as a result of this, you don't have to ask, is it me or is it the guitar? Is this a problem, or is it just because I suck? No, it's just because you suck. And I know that sounds backwards that we be saying that, but it's true. I know it's not the guitar, because the guitar is awesome. I know it's not the guitar. I don't have to compensate for anything. I don't have to think about anything. I don't have to mentally have to justify anything, because the guitar is awesome, right? It's just awesome. And I just need to practice. Then you can say, all I need to do is practice because the guitar is awesome, right? Now, most people will say you could do that on any guitar. And if you have a cheap guitar with, not even cheap, just less than perfect guitar, if you just concentrate on practicing, none of that matters. It's not true. It just isn't true, because you'll always be distracted by the thing that isn't right. You cannot practice around every problem. You can't. People say, well, if you just learn on anything, okay, sure, you can learn on stuff. And sometimes learning on something sucky, go back to the firearms thing. If you learn trigger control with a Glock, which has a notoriously terrible trigger, and then you get a very high performing pistol, like a Nighthawk, or I've got one of those 211 GTO SIGs, where the thing is just amazing. Then you're like, oh, hit 10. This is awesome. Now my life all of a sudden got easier, and you've developed a skill because you practice on something that sucks. So to a point, that's true. But if fretwork on a guitar isn't right, if the action isn't right, if the tone isn't right, you are practicing around problems instead of learning and making progress. It's wasted energy. It's wasted energy. So while the guitar doesn't make you actually more skilled, it does allow you to develop skill. It allows you to perform closer to your actual ability. Sometimes a piece of equipment will hold you back from understanding your true potential, right? We see this in racing all the time, where you have a really good driver, but he's not in the best equipment. You put him in the best equipment, all of a sudden he starts winning. The skill is there. The potential is there. Even if he doesn't totally have the skill, because he hasn't totally been able to develop it because he's been held back by the equipment. Then you get him on something awesome, and all of a sudden, boom, he's unleashed. Happens all the time in racing. It's the same thing with guitar stuff. If your guitar is holding you back, mentally or physically, we're going to talk about that in a minute, then you don't get to fully express yourself with that instrument. You could buy a new guitar, you could put a new set of pickups in a guitar, and all of a sudden unleash potential that was always there. It was always there. Maybe the skill wasn't there, but once you were not held back by that guitar, all of a sudden you were just unleashed, and boom, then your confidence grows. Confidence matters. I think one of the things, and I probably should do a video just on this, about the psychology versus the technical part of playing guitar. I think that doesn't have anything to do with the tone. Okay, screw you, dude. Like the color of the guitar, the finish of the guitar, how it feels, how it looks, whether it feels expensive or not, whether it is or not doesn't matter, but whether it feels nice, whether you're like, I love this guitar because it's cool. All those things really matter to the tone in the end, if that guitar gives you confidence. So if you're a person who says, you know what, I really want a real PRS instead of an SE, just because I really want, I want to step up from a Mexican guitar to a Fender to a regular Fender. I want to get a real Les Paul. That confidence that comes with owning that instrument, the trust that you have in it, the love for it, just the desire to have it, to see it, to smell it, to look at it, that psychology matters when you pick up the guitar and you play. It's part of the thing that could hold you back. Everybody that sits around justifying why a guitar is just as good as something else, and we've not once talked about price here, but when you are in the mentality of just as good as, you are using part of your brain for something that you could be using for creativity. You are wasting energy on something other than the intention of that instrument. Now, and that's okay. If you want to be a just as good as guy and complain about this and that and whatever and waste your energy on that in the comment section all the time, that's totally fine. That's on you. It's not on me. I don't care. But what I'm saying is, if you want to be a guitar player and you want to develop your skill and you want to enjoy this to its fullest, I always say this, when you do that kind of stuff, you're cutting off a percentage of the potential fun that you could be having. This is not fake. This is not made up. This is human nature. It's a real psychology. This is how humans work. This is how we work as people. When we gain confidence in something based on what we're doing, and it could be how shiny the guitar is. It could be, honestly, it could be how expensive the guitar is. It could be, you know what? I just feel like anything under this much is just too cheap. It doesn't matter. I don't know. That's not how I think, but it could be how somebody thinks. It doesn't matter. Leave them alone. Because if they gain a potential amount of confidence in that instrument, they gain that potential confidence in themselves. They gain potential. They have performance at the ready. for their skill to grow into. People hold themselves back mentally and doing this all the time. I see it all the time. I'm like, man, if you didn't waste your time thinking about that crap, you could be awesome. You could be awesome. I even think about it like trolls in the comments. I'm like, dude, you're probably amazing at something. I don't know why you're wasting your time telling me I suck at guitar. Like, I don't get it. I bet you are better than me, but that's not helping anything. I would love to just hear you play guitar. If you say you're better than me, it'd be great. It'd be awesome. Wasting energy on, talking all this stuff down and the just as good as thing and all that is just stupid. It's just dumb. It's just a waste of time. This all works to a point, and then we've got diminishing returns, obviously. You can, and people talk about diminishing returns as a bad thing, but it's actually not. Better doesn't always mean more expensive, obviously. We know that, right? The first few $100s of a guitar can gain huge improvements. You can go from 3 to 5 to 7 to 8 to 12 to 15. You start to get above $1,500, $2,000 and things, it starts to get really into the finer points of things, right? There's tremendous value in that first $1,000, $1,500, right? Like you can really see the steps almost in the progress between the guitars. And then you move into higher end stuff. This is with anything. It doesn't even matter. It could be cars, could be bikes, could be guns, could be anything, knives, it could be anything. The higher you go, that diminishing returns thing and the improvements get smaller. And so people will look at that as a negative thing, be like, I'm spending all that money and it's not giving me anything. That's usually the mentality behind that. They look at diminishing returns as a negative. But what people forget is that the last 10%, the last 5% is the most expensive. So when you're looking at finishing techniques on a guitar, when you're looking at fret techniques like hemispherical fret ends, when you're looking at stainless steel frets properly done, when you're looking at better pickups, when you're looking at the things that cost a lot of money, those things at the higher end do give you performance gains, but it's more expensive to get smaller increments. In racing, when we were doing world record passes at Bonneville, the first 80% of the speed was pretty easy, right? But it's that last 20%, 10%, 5%. And when you look at like how much power it takes, like how many horsepower it takes to go 100 miles an hour, and then it's exponentially more to go 200 miles an hour, and then it's exponentially more to go 300 miles an hour. And that money, that's expensive. Like it's pretty easy to go 100 miles an hour. Then it's a little more expensive to go 200 miles an hour. And then it is ungodly expensive to go 300 miles an hour, right? So it's the same thing with anything. You buy a watch, and this type of finishing is not that expensive. But then you step up to another kind of finishing, and that process, even though it only looks a little different, is way, 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 way more expensive. Mirror polished frets versus regular stock kind of looking frets is a completely different process. Stainless steel frets versus regular nickel frets is a completely different process. It's different tools, it's different time frame, it's different materials. It's actually, the materials aren't that much more expensive, it's the time, right? Nitrocellulose finish the process is completely different. The time that it takes to do it, meaning that the way the guitar is made and how long it takes to make the guitar and the cycle time and all that kind of stuff is all different. You take a guitar like the Herman Lee guitar that's like $7,000, or you even take the SE and you look at all the machining on that thing and you go, okay, yes, it seems expensive for an SE at $2,000, but the reason it is this way is because these finer points of how this thing is put together, that last 10% is more expensive. So all of those things, even though they seem like they're diminishing returns, do cost real money. I mean, that's where that final 10%, 5% comes into play. And you're right. None of this stuff magically creates skill. But when you remove limitations, when you remove bad design, when you remove imperfections, individual small little things are small, right? This little thing that costs a lot of money is small. This little thing that costs a lot of money is small. This little thing that costs a lot of money is small. Okay, on that end of the spectrum. But when you put it all together, it collectively creates a higher performing instrument that then you don't even think about the guitar. My new PRS that I just got, that thing is like that. I can play it and you just kind of forget. My McPherson carbon fiber guitar is the same thing. You just forget. You forget that it's carbon fiber after about 10 minutes. You just forget you're holding a guitar. It's just so good. And you just don't have to think about it. And that is the important key. Being excited to pick it up, that feeling that you get, the psychological side of this is super, super important. Yes, you are not buying skill, but you are buying motivation. You are buying the desire to play, right? So it doesn't much matter how much it costs, and where we are in the journey affects that as well. Again, from $500 to $1,000, there's a huge, if you have a $300 guitar and you're like, I want to feel the performance gains of something a little bit better, $500 to $800, and you probably feel a huge difference, right? Because it really moves in that amount. That amount. So you don't have to be expensive about this, but just understand that you are buying performance when you spend more money, most of the time. And if you want to argue that, I would be happy to do it with specific model. We could talk about it if you wanted to, because people don't think this matters, but it really, really matters. I'm not saying everybody needs to go buy a custom shop guitar to be a better guitar player. I'm not saying that at all. But what I am saying is don't be a just as good as guy, because it's not just as good as, and there is a very real reason why you should be willing, if you want to be a better guitar player, to pay for performance.